What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Blood on the Razor Wire TV, where we bring it to you real and we bring it to you raw. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, share the video. Make sure you leave a comment. A few weeks back, I had talked to you guys about Philip Donald, a.k.a. Gino. That was his new name when he got to federal prison because he didn't want people to know what he was in there for. And some people actually did. You know, a few influential people from the New York area were protecting this cat, and they were protecting him for, in their mind, good reasons, right? They didn't want people to find out what he was really in there for. But we're going to talk about it today. He is a guy that I absolutely came to despise. He was a guy, like I said, that was protected because he was a former lawyer. He was a former mayor. He was a con man at the highest levels. Like, this dude was a complete, super con man. He had these dudes believing that he was going to do all their legal work for free. He was going to get them out of jail. He was a real lawyer, and because he was a real lawyer, he was better than any jailhouse lawyer that could ever try to help these cats. Some of these cats had life. So what they did was they said, you know what, we're going to protect this cat. And I remember getting introduced to him. And I'm like, damn, man, I heard all the stories. I'm like, damn, this dude was a real lawyer. And in my young jailhouse mind, right, jailhouse lawyer at the time, you know, right when I was kind of starting out doing what I was doing, you know, helping other people, I'm thinking I could probably learn some stuff from this dude. This dude probably knows a lot. And as I got to know him, I started to feel like, man, this dude ain't that swift. He ain't that smart. I don't know how the hell he got a law degree. And then there was a day when another guy came up to me and said, Chad, man, I don't know why you talk to that dude. I said, why, what's up? He said, you know who he is? I said, yeah, man, he's a lawyer, man. He was the mayor in Waterbury, Connecticut. He says, well, you know, I see you talking to the dude every day, and you know, you think he's your homeboy and all of that. But here, man, here's a newspaper article. And he slid me this newspaper article. And I started reading the article, and I was like, wow. I was just shocked. And then I had asked one of the homies, I'm like, yo, what's up with this dude, man? He was in the black New York car. And I'm like, what's up? And he's like, well, look, man, the homies are protecting this dude because he's doing all their legal work. And that's when I found out, you know, hey, man, jailhouse lawyer, real lawyer. They're going to protect this cat despite what he's done. And he done some vicious things, man. But we're going to get into it. We're going to go into the article, one of the articles that I had read. And we're going to talk about it, man. It might be a little bit lengthy today, but these are the people that you deal with. And there's people in prison that will protect these cats because their ulterior motive is, hey, I want this guy to get me out of jail. And in their minds, they were thinking that this cat's going to get him out. And one of the cats that he was helping, the guy that was at the top of the influential thing, he really didn't do anything for him. He couldn't help him, couldn't get him out of jail. But eventually, I got out of jail on compassionate release, and I sent all the stuff to this gentleman from New York, who had about 35 years in. Tried to help him out a little bit on the compassionate release, sent everything over to him. Federal defenders ended up writing the stuff. They filed it, and he got out of jail. But he was pretty much protecting this dude, who was just a pretty bad dude, man. But let's talk about it. To the extent that such events can be fixed in time, the moment Mayor Philip A. Giordano's obsession with sex jumped from back alley gossip to pressing political business occurred at the end of a corny downtown Christmas pageant. Giordano backers, the plain-spoken Italian-Americans who ran the city, were walking back to City Hall when the city's Republican chairman, Mike Stolfi, hemmed and hawed his way into the presence of Giordano's father-in-law, a stocky builder and bank director from Long Island named Salvatore Travato. Sal, Stolfi said, I hope I'm not overstepping my bounds. I don't mean disrespect. Tell me if I'm out of line. That got Travato's attention. Your son-in-law is out carousing at night. Is going to get him in trouble. There are a lot of people who support him and have put their reputation on the line with his. Maybe you can talk some sense into him. It was out, finally. Stolfi was political but wildly understated. The mayor would be accused and eventually convicted of far more than just carousing. But there was no doubting Stolfi's sincerity. You don't make up that kind of stuff when you're talking to the father of Giordano's wife, the young woman who, at the moment in November 1999, was resting at home after delivering the mayor's third son. He met Dawn Travato, the 27-year-old daughter of a rich Long Island construction magnate. Giordano and a friend were in Florida on a car buying trip, staying at a friend's condominium in Palm Beach. Dawn was vacationing nearby in one of the two condos her father owned. They met at a gym. Dawn was as interested in Phil as he was in her, and she wasn't shy about showing it. She hired a plane to fly him to Atlantic City for a gambling weekend. She sent him tins of nuts with reminders that
I'm nuts about you. She invited him to sporting events, including the Kentucky Derby, where her father had box seats at Churchill Downs. The chatter about Phil was beginning to get louder in the circles of those that were part of that life. Jared Donald, for his part, was characteristically oblivious to the nervous conversation about him. Just 2 months later, in February, Jared Donald married Dawn at St. Patrick's Cathedral in Manhattan, where family and friends gathered for a storybook wedding, with an equally fancy reception at Tavern on the Green in Central Park. Back home in Waterbury, the newly married Jared Donald whipshawed between two women who occupied the two sides of his being. Dawn had everything a kid from a mill town wanted, and Gigi, a prostitute that Phil was infatuated with, had something he probably couldn't explain. That wildness her friends always speak of. He was deep into a double life that in quick succession of years would see him elected to the Covent Town Plot legislative seat in November 1994. He would father 3 sons with Dawn and win 3 consecutive terms as a mayor of Waterbury in 1995, 1997, and again in 1999. Outwardly, the aimless chump from Holy Cross was transformed. Mayor Jared Donald always wore a sharp suit and a smiling confidence, but the shell wasn't seamless. So far, it had been the mayor's kind of day. Children chased a perspiring Santa. Bob Mabillo's brass-on-brass combo belted out holiday favorites. Jared Donald stood above it all, beaming at 1,000 constituents from atop a reviewing stand. As always, he was the natty focus of all attention in downtown at the Heels Lunch Bucket Town. His face was tanned. His scalp showed the luxurious promise of prescription hair thickener. And at just the right moment, with a manicured finger, he flicked the switch that illuminated the city green. Actually, he flicked a fake switch. Men with real switches hid beneath the city's Christmas tree or behind light poles waiting for the signal. Even though the lights sparkled on cue, it was a little hard to get into the spirit. Around the green, dark windows on a closed business stared blankly at would-be shoppers. And it was warm out. Jared Donald liked to light the Christmas tree early so he could get out of town just before Thanksgiving. Stolfi had to wait for a reply because the mayor's father-in-law needed time to think things through. I don't think you're out of line, Travato said finally. Maybe I ought to talk with him. But it was too late for talk. What Stolfi referred to as Jared Donald's carousing was actually a perverse obsession with S and a spiraling affinity for Waterbury's surreal street culture of hookers and hard drugs. This is what Big Phil wanted. This is what he loved. But less than 2 years later, the mayor would be charged with the most heinous of crimes. As Jared Donald at the age of 38 evolved over the decades from amiable teenage burnout to Republican U.S. Senate nominee to an accused Big R. You know what the Big R is. He methodically constructed a shell of respectability around an increasingly rotten core. He managed to accumulate degrees and titles. He was a Marine, a lawyer, a legislator, and the mayor 3 times. But as his facade of success grew more elaborate, his internal pathology accelerated. His growing prestige masked his growing sexual obsessions, his explosive anger, his ludicrous self-aggrandizing. At each step of his climb, he used his new power to meet and manipulate women. During his first political job as an investigator in the City Corporation Counsel's office, colleagues suspected that he had made advances on a woman suing the city over the death of her 6-year-old son. As a young lawyer in the early 1990s, he was accused of taking his fee in sex from a woman he represented in a child custody dispute. He also roared around town on his Harley, ordered city department heads to stand in his presence, became enraged when he didn't get his way. He was often inexplicably absent from his office, even as he took the city to the brink of bankruptcy. He developed an unusually close relationship with the mob-linked head of a large construction firm. And yet, as wanton and reckless as his behavior became, when Jared Donald decided to run for the U.S. Senate against the hugely popular incumbent, Joe Lieberman, nobody could stop him. Not the leaders of the state Republican Party who warned of a colossal embarrassment. Not even Governor John G. Rowland, a fellow Waterbury native who told Jared Donald flat out that a Senate campaign was crazy. Everyone seemed to know that Jared Donald was, as the governor said privately, a bad guy. This guy was one of the worst you could ever imagine. The things that he did are outrageous. Even newly elected President George W. Bush seemed to know it when he visited Waterbury in April, 5 months after Jared Donald's crushing loss to Lieberman. Bush's advance team, apparently armed with inside information of a federal corruption investigation with the mafia, went to extraordinary lengths to keep the mayor away from the president. But somehow, in Jared Donald's case, all the checks and balances that normally constrain a public official's behavior failed. Ultimately, it would take the FBI 6 months of wiretapping the mayor's cell phone conversations to stumble upon the shocking evidence of his alleged assaults against 2 youngsters. Nothing and no one, it seems, could stop Jared Donald's inexplorable implosion until he had left a pile of victims. His parents, his wife, his own children, the children of Waterbury itself. But then, not much have ever stopped him. Phil Jared Donald, aka Gino, had a motto: never say die, never say no, never give up. And his story has a moral: determined self-delusion can go a very long way until you get caught.
Federal prison is a whole different monster than you could ever imagine, right? Gino had ended up coming to this prison from another prison because some of the homies had found out what he was really in there for, his story about, being involved in the mob and doing the illegal things. It didn't fly, man. Someone eventually found out what was up with him. They had put the hands on him, put the beats on him, hit him in the face with hot water, and they sent him up out of there. And eventually he came to the prison that we were at. And in your mind, you're thinking, like, why are they protecting this cat? Why is this cat allowed to make it? Certain things that I can't say on YouTube. I guess if I had a Patreon, we could. But we can. So you can kind of gather, like, what was up with this cat. The federal government does this big investigation. Their investigation is, related to the corruption. The mob, they're getting all these contracts in Waterbury, Connecticut. The finances in Waterbury, they ended up tanking. Phil's the mayor. He's out there lying to the people. Man, we're getting the budget fixed. We're doing everything for you, the people. When really he was over there destroying the office. He was a young kid, man. Growing up, he was a burnout. And eventually, he became a Marine. He did all that stuff. And I guess you could say he hit the lotto when he met that chick, right? He ends up marrying her. Her father's the plug. And they're making some money. There's a lot of money going in his pocket. The family's being taken care of. They're getting all of them's taxpayer dollars. Government's, tapping the mob, tapping the phones. And they find out, hey, man, the mayor, he's over here doing some other things that we couldn't even imagine. We knew he was corrupt. We knew he was I guess in their words, a POS, a piece of shit. But then they end up intercepting these conversations with this prostitute. And the prostitute's, wow, man, things that we just can't say on YouTube, but you could always read about it. And, Phil ends up coming to that prison, right? And I'm sure when he gets there, he tells the mob lawyer story first. He doesn't tell people what he's really in there for. But eventually he does. And he ends up helping one of the big homies. He's in the New York black car. And this is real and it's raw, so let's just call it how it is. Sometimes dudes jump in different cars, man, for protection. He jumps in the New York car. He gets close with the big homie. He knows who he's targeting. This dude's a professional con man. When I tell you that, professional con man. I absolutely despise him. He gets close to the dude that's the big homie, big brolic dude. Wasn't going to say his name, but it's real and it's raw. Let's call it what it is. His name was Powerful. He's from Brooklyn. He ended up with a 25-year sentence. He's trying to get out of jail. And no one really knows even what he's in jail for. But eventually that comes out. What's he in jail for? He's in there for pimping. But people look at that stuff in federal prison like, oh, no, man, he was out there getting money. They don't look at it for what it really is or how old the girls were, right? Many of them underage. This is a big thing now in the feds, man. You get knocked for this shit, your ass is going up the river, buddy. Playing no games. So them guys are sitting at home on that computer or doing wild things. This is a message for you, too, to get out. You can end up like Phil with 37 years in federal prison. So anyway, man, dude's big, brolic dude, man, and he rules because he's aggressive. Street dude, Brooklyn, known to use that thing, I guess. Talks that street talk. But he's protecting Big Phil. He's protecting Phil because he wants to get out of jail. He thinks that Phil, his jailhouse lawyer, who used to be a lawyer, is his savior. So as long as I keep Phil under the wing, I'm in good shape. And, I'm not going to lie to you. There was a time where me and Phil, man, we were pretty close for about 30 days, 40, maybe 45 days. Talked to him every day. I wanted to learn. I'm thinking, man, I could learn from this dude. And eventually I started thinking like, damn, this dude ain't really as swift as I thought he was. Really, he's over here just doing legal work to try to make money to survive. And he's charging a lot of these people big money because he's got that title. Yeah, I went to law school. I was the mayor. And he's making some pretty big money over there doing law work for dudes. And I'm like, wow, he's really not as smart as I thought. And then eventually dude slides me the article. I read the article and I start to pull back. But I pull back because I had asked one of the homies, a kid named Ra out of Connecticut. He was in there for the big P2. Eventually found that out, which I didn't know because me and Ra were in USP Lee together and he was making it over there. But like I said, in federal prison, Dudes are allowed to have that stuff on their back. They're allowed to have that stuff in their jacket, and, you know, depending on where they're at, nothing happens. So dudes are just like, nah, man, he's out there getting money. That's part of, that's part of the criminal underworld. So anyway, man, I had said something to Ra. I think Ra said something to Gino. So, and Gino felt me pull back, and Ra was just like, yo, look, this is what it is. He's helping the big homie. And eventually, man, dudes are going to smash him. And he tells me this big elaborate story, which probably wasn't true. They're not going to smash him. And eventually, man, Gino starts to feel some kind of way. He's like, man, he thinks that, I don't know what the hell he was thinking. But anyway, he sends the kid Powerful at me. I'm out on the basketball court one morning, early morning, out there working out. And dude presses me. Like, yo, what's up, man? You got a problem with my man? And he's talking like he's about to, take me off the yard. Yeah, okay. And, we're going to call it how it is. Like I said, this dude was an aggressive dude. And not on no racial shit, because I've got more black people out of prison than any other race. My classes, my GED classes, I taught more black dudes how to read and write than anyone else. So I don't want people to take this the wrong way, but this is what it is. I think dude felt like because I was white, I was supposed to be scared of him. He's big, he's brown, like he's about to put the press game down. He was a 5%er or whatever. And I'm like, what's up? We end up squaring off. And when we square off, one of the big homies that I wasn't going to mention, but okay, we'll mention him too. Guy Fisher. Guy Fisher runs over to me, and Guy Fisher used to be really close back then. He separates us. He's like, yo, man, you guys are homies. Yo, we can't be out here fighting. We don't want this to be a bigger thing. He takes me off to the side, and, he explains, again, something that I already know, prison politics. Yo, Chad, man, you're white. This dude's got, a lot of homies behind him. And I'm like, yeah, man, all right, man, whatever. But dude, while Guy Fisher's walking me away, he's talking shit and whatever. But dude knew that, I'm whatever, man, win, lose, or draw, man, we're going to get it in. We're going to find out who's going to be the winner. So pretty much, man, he left me alone after that, right? Talked a little shit behind my back, I'm sure, but he left me alone. I left him alone. And, my position on Gino was like, wow, I can't believe that these dudes are, allowing this shit to happen. And eventually, I think something else happened to Gino again. I think he got beat up again. And not by the dudes that were there to protect him, because his savior, the bodyguard, ended up leaving that prison. So Gino was left all alone. But this is federal prison. These are the things that happen in there. There are dudes that are willing to, protect these cats. And like I said, I despise this dude. This dude did wicked things. He would tell the youngsters, if you tell anybody, I'm going to, I can have your mommy go to jail. And he was driving around in the police car, and they seen that stuff, and they testified at the trial. Like, we were scared. We thought he was like God. We thought he ruled the world. We thought he was the king. That's what these little girls testified to. That's why we didn't say nothing. And, we always give a message, right? And like I said earlier, this is a message because kids are innocent victims, man. If you're out there doing bad things, man, doing things like that, think about what they're going to do to you, because eventually, man, they catch you. The feds will catch you eventually. And when they catch your ass, you're going to be sitting in prison. You're going to have no access to, the core links. They take all them privileges from you. They lock your ass up 40, 50 years, 100 years. Gino's never, this dude's like, is he getting out of prison? He ended up with 37 years. He just filed a compassionate release motion. The judge just denied it, I think on the 12th. August 12th, the judge says, look, man, you got no remorse. You tell us about how much rehabilitation you've done, how many programs you've done. But at the end of the day, I'm the judge, and I think you're a piece of shit. So no, I'm not granting your compassionate release. You're going to sit in prison. You're never getting out. Well, not never getting out, but you're going to get out when you're super old, and you can't victimize people anymore. Because it's obvious, man, that you were delusional. It's obvious that you got some real serious mental health problems doing the things that you do, doing the things that you've done. So do some of these cats, these chomos, make it in prison? Yeah. Sometimes people protect them. Very seldom. I mean, he wouldn't be protected at a place like Big Sandy. Definitely wouldn't have been protected at a place like, USP Victorville or USP Atwater. And, dudes would have definitely, the white dudes would have got at him before he could make the New York car change or whatever he did, They would have definitely probably stepped to him. If he was on the yard with us with Adam Oliveri, he would have been on that first helicopter smoking, I promise you that. With respect, Blood on the Razor Wire TV. Until tomorrow, we're out.